What's up everybody, we are Deanna and Phil. Deanna's from the United States and I'm from Germany, and in this video we're gonna talk about problems that come with dating internationally.
There are a lot of fun and exciting aspects of being in a relationship from two different countries. There are always interesting cultural differences and experiences to learn and share. But today we are going to talk about some of the problems and struggles that are not always so obvious.
Yeah. So problem number one is gonna be bureaucracy, which is not that sexy.
No. There is so much paperwork, visas, rules and regulations, being a couple from two different countries. Don't even get me started about taxes. It is not sexy at all. It can be a very, very stressful process.
That is true, and we are luckier than most because having a US and a German passport allows us to have an easier process. For example, we were told so many times during our process to get Deanna a residency card that it is not that difficult since she is a US passport holder and you are a German citizen.
Yeah, we are definitely luckier than most. Also, not to mention that there are way less resources and guidance for people in relationships from two different countries.
That's so true.
For example, when we wanted to get married with a US and a German passport, it was so hard to find any guidance about the process or required documents. Everyone has a different experience because every state in Germany and the US operates differently.
And to be honest, a lot of times the officials don't even know themselves what exactly to do.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's no script for very special cases.
Yeah.
And yeah, the worst is doing taxes with a US citizen. The bottom line is bureaucracy is not sexy, and it's just one of the additional realities that we as an international couple have to deal with.
Problem number two is language.
Genau. Even if one person is fluent in the language, there are usually going to be language barriers. Most certainly. Whether it's with your partner, their friends, or with their family, there may be conversational struggles.
Or if you're just visiting one person's home country, there is a new dynamic of relying on the other person for translations. Although this does come with a huge positive, as you get to go around with a native speaker and probably be exposed to more of the culture than if you didn't speak the language at all.
Yes, even though I would say I'm fluent in English, I was surprised how often I didn't understand people in the US. For example, stronger accents from the South. And I was even more surprised how they couldn't understand me. And most of you know, Deanna's learning German. We always get messages like, "You can just practice with Phil," or "Why doesn't Phil teach you?" And while I'm happy to help, speaking German to each other doesn't really work with us for a couple of reasons. I don't know if you ever tried, but a teacher-student situation with your partner just feels a bit weird. And also we are so used to switching to English all the time.
Yeah, I think maybe when I'm at a higher German level, it'll be easier for us to speak in German. But yeah, since we work together, live together, relationship together, it can be too much to add a lesson into it too. Don't get me wrong, it is super helpful and convenient since Phil can further explain any grammar questions or correct pronunciation. It's just him being my primary teacher is just personally not for us.
Oh, and by the way, if you like this video, a thumbs up and a sub to the channel would be highly appreciated.
Yeah.
Point number 3 is a big one, and it is cultural efforts and conflicts. So coming from two different countries comes with cultural differences. There's going to be a time when each person needs to adapt and understand the other culture, which can be hard at times.
There are going to be times when we don't agree or see eye to eye on a topic, and it's probably easier to just blame some things on cultural differences. And sometimes it is definitely culturally related based on our backgrounds, the way we grew up and where we're coming from. However, I think this is probably common in most relationships, whether you have two different passports or you come from the same small town. We all just grew up a little differently. Most relationships just require some work, communication, and understanding.
Yeah, there are definitely going to be some cultural differences, and it's just how much effort you put into understanding each other. And let's be honest, Deanna's and my culture are not that different. But since even we encounter difficulties coming from these slightly different viewpoints, I can only imagine how hard it can be at times for a couple coming from two vastly different backgrounds.
Yeah.
So big respect to you international couples out there. We love what you're doing.
So this is a little silly and ridiculous, but our first fight was about pizza, whether it was for sharing or not.
It's not.
And this was not just a little snappy disagreement. This was a full-on debate turned into an argument, turned into a fight about pizza sizes. We were both so stubborn at the time, and ultimately it came down to what we were used to growing up. My family typically splits 1 or 2 pizzas, while Phil's family often has a pizza each for themselves. And seeing pizzas here in Germany, it makes sense now because their pizzas are typically smaller and way less, and just the volume that each person eats is different.
Yeah, I was ready to break up over that.
What?
Point number 4 is going to be that family and friends are kind of divided.
There are a lot of positives to having family in 2 different countries. We are people who love to travel, and travel will be involved every time we see one of our families. However, there are difficulties as well, having to ultimately be apart from one family or the other. If we decide to live in Germany or decide to live in the US, there's always that thought in there and how difficult it's going to be to see the other person's family. Even if we decide to live in a different city in Germany, we would likely only be a 2 or 3 hour drive away from Phil's family, and 24 hours and thousands of dollars traveling away from my family.
Yeah, for example, if or when we have kids, at least one, if not both, of their grandparents will be in a different country. They won't see them as frequently as a grandparent that lives in the same city or down the street. For me, for example, both of my grandparents were nearby. One lived with us and the only one only like 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of normal.
On the other hand, I lived in a different state than both of my grandparents, and I know how hard it was just being a 10 to 20 hour drive away from my grandparents. Adding completely different countries is going to be even harder for future children.
Also financially, this can become stressful unless you're like loaded. But even then, it would still be a time-consuming thing that needs to fit in your schedule. For example, every time there's a family event, you need to gauge if it's worth the time and the money to make the trip. But looking on the bright side, this could also be seen as a perk. Like, I wish I had grandparents in the US to visit, so
yeah.
Jealous of our unborn future children. And speaking of it, problem number 5 is going to be, it is just a bit more expensive. As romantic as it may sometimes sound, being in an international relationship is expensive.
It costs a lot of money.
Like, there are additional government documents to file for everything.
Yeah.
And that comes with fees. Taxes are just a bitch, requiring certified translation of documents. The list goes on and on.
It really is way more paperwork and money. In addition, most money saved is usually spent on a flight just to see the other person's family. And hopefully once you get there, you have a place to stay.
And our last point, number 6, is that some people just don't want to see you together.
Before we get into this one, let's just say that most people do not care or really mind that we are together. However, there is always that loud minority that likes to voice their unsolicited opinions or beliefs onto us. And I'm sure others as well. Some people just don't want to see people together who are from 2 different countries, different races, different ethnicities, whatever it may be.
So we're basically talking about racism or discrimination here. And we are exposed to these opinions a little bit more because we make videos on the internet and putting them out there for everyone and anyone to comment on. And most of the times we don't experience that in person, but you know, idiots are everywhere and especially on the internet. Case in point.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, both of our families and friends are very accepting and welcoming. The fact that we come from different countries is not a negative thing, it's a very positive thing for them. And I have been in relationships before where people just weren't welcoming. And this is me personally, but I wouldn't be able to be with someone whose parents or family and friends didn't accept me.
Well, my parents love you. More than me, maybe. But if people don't want others to be together because of their origin, their country, race, skin color, gender, or whatever, just fuck them. Their opinion is worthless.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 2021, so let's just wake the fuck up.
We're gonna have to bleep a lot.
Also, guys, quick shout out to our family member Patreons.
A big thank you to Marcus Ottensman, Fred42, Ethan Mitchell, Heather Kuffner, Hasten Metro, Jay Reed, Shar Mills, Tarek Malkosh,
Stephanie Wendt, Danu, Jörg Michels, Megan Rosati, Shannon Bradley, Sean and Alex, Klaus Eisert, James and Kelly Schröder, Holden Gilbert, and Jutta and Wolfgang Fulkner. Big thank you to you guys.
Thank you.
But yeah, let us know what you think in the comments below.
Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
A big thank you to everyone who watches our videos and supports us, and a special thank you to our patrons for supporting us and helping us to make videos like these. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye!